Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good.
All right, I'm ready to challenge you and get some good ideas flowing tonight. And we will start here in 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll go on and get started, and I want to welcome you to the second part of our series. Do you guys see the PowerPoint intro
Yep.
slide?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this evening we are going to discuss multiple choice, true, false, and matching. I've got more quizzes and like more as in more of them. And then I want to try out this whiteboard thing because I think it's important that we all share ideas here. And my goal really is to provide you with something to talk about. And then from that, we can generate more ideas that will help everybody else. So let's see how this works. So our the first type of test item that we're going to be discussing today is going to be multiple choice. And the multiple choice item consists of the STEM, which identifies the question or problem, and the response, alternatives or choices. Usually your students are asked to select one of the alternatives or more than one of the alternatives that best completes a statement or answers a question. They are considered to be the most versatile of all types of test items, and that you can vary along Bloom's taxonomy to test levels of understanding and knowledge, and also application. A couple of other things, and I'm not sure if you all already incorporate this in your classroom, but multiple choice can provide an excellent basis for discussion after the exam, especially if that discussion addresses why the incorrect responses are wrong, and then you kind of close that instructional circle. One of the downsides, and I'm sure I will hear this in a minute, of composing or creating multiple choice items is that they are time consuming to construct well. Now, you've got to find a balance between making them too discriminating or what our students would call picky, but also you want to make sure that those who know the answer get it, and those who don't know the content don't, regardless of their guess chances. Often, if they're not carefully constructed, they can be misinterpreted by students. So how many of you guys have ever had that, a contested multiple choice question?
Never.
All right, so let's start off with a poll. All righty, what you're going to do here is just answer these multiple choice questions. You all see them?
Yep.
Okay, excellent.
A minute here. Okay. Discord.
Okay, you have about 30 more seconds.
I didn't see question 3, Ellen, so hold on.
I'm going to need to call time so that we can move forward. Okay. Does anybody need more time? All right, let's end it. Okay, so I'm going to share the results here. And we're going to discuss these one by one. So multiple choice items provide highly reliable test scores because the answer is they allow a wide sampling of content and a reduced guessing factor.
Ah, that's what I had the first time. Change my answer.
The bane of multiple choice right there, everybody. Okay. Students, or wait, no, hold on a minute. Students should, and the answer to that is always review your marked exams. Now, I'm interested into why somebody selected always do the multiple choice items first on an exam.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, there she is.
Oh, and I see a typo. My bad, everybody.
Sorry, I was checking that. What was that again?
I just saw a typo on my screen. But I was wondering why always do the multiple choice items on an exam first. Why that was chosen.
Frankly, I was kind of like, I was looking at the other ones and I was kind of like trying to figure, and I was like, the other ones didn't kind of make a lot of sense. Like, because the one says always review your, says make, I wasn't sure what that was saying.
It should say marked. There's
Yeah.
where the typo. So
Oh,
we'll
okay.
throw that
Yeah,
we'll throw that question out.
Well, I
Go
think
ahead.
process of elimination. One was clearly wrong.
Right.
How would reviewing marked exams help? Of course you can change an answer,
Right.
you know, if you've got
Right,
time
right.
at the end. So I did that good old thing of process of elimination.
There
And it
you
makes
go.
sense.
All right. The multiple choice, number 3. Here's a strategy. The multiple choice above is structurally undesirable because all of the above.
Got that one.
D.
Yep.
Now, my question to you is, why is the multiple choice poll item number 3 undesirable?
Number 3.
Yeah, the one we just went over.
Way too
Why is-
many answers.
Yeah, exactly. Too many
Yes, it's
answers. All righty, so let's roll on. Now, a different strategy today that I want to take is we all have good things to say. And I'm going to try a whiteboard share with the Zoom meeting. Have you all ever done that before?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, all right. So if this doesn't work, we'll do old-fashioned. I'll write it down and then type it up and send it out, okay? So you should see a whiteboard in front of you now. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And we're going to try to keep this all on the same one. So let me move my screen around a little bit. And I'm going to click text. And we're going to talk about multiple choice creation strategies. Give me some. What are some of your strategies for creating multiple choice?
Test bank questions.
Test bank questions. Do you create your own? Does anybody create their own and have
Yeah, I do create my own.
suggestions?
Right. You're gonna laugh. It's like I almost wish I had one in front of me so I could kind of like. It's like
I mean, I have some that I'm able to present you. I just thought maybe if you guys had something you wanted to share with your colleagues, we could make a midway list.
Yeah, I'm doing that very thing. I'm pulling one off here to take one.
I've thought about trying to do my own, Ellen, but people, it's a full-time job.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, so I use test bank questions, and I've got them all the way from application to critical thinking, and then I may modify them.
Okay. What makes you modify them? That's a good one.
Because of the way I teach a particular course, that it may be somewhat different than what the question is really trying to target, but unclear.
Right.
And so if I read that question and I think it's unclear based on the way I lecture, I modify.
Excellent. That's an excellent practice. Anybody else have any other contributions?
I modify test bank questions when I'm making an exam, simply because I want to test students on the concepts. If I give them, say, a study guide, test banks are out there and they're available for students to they can access the test banks. What I try to do is I try to use different manipulate the numbers, keep the concepts the same. But what scares me a little bit is the fact that test banks are so easy to get a hold of. So I'll take test bank questions, but I'll modify them for my own purposes. And like what John said, I'll read a question. It may not be a good question, and I'll go ahead and modify it as well.
Right.
So modify test bank to deter the Googling of test bank questions.
Yeah. That's
there you go.
Yeah.
All right, I was trying to phrase that. That's the way it came out. Yes, Sue.
I'll state the obvious. I mean, include the correct answer. If you don't, say none of the above. But the other is use a language that's familiar to the students.
Excellent. Yeah. I'm putting that. Use familiar language, which is why Delfino modifies his test bank.
Oh boy, you nailed me.
Yeah. All right, let's roll on with this. We got more to do. So much more. All right. You see whiteboard multiple choice now on your screen?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay. I'm going to mute everybody as we go through the next. Well, no, I won't. Y'all might want to chime in. Okay. So here we have suggestions from the article or white paper, whatever you want to call it, for writing multiple choice items. When possible, state the STEM as a direct question rather than as an incomplete statement. One of the reasons for this, besides it's more clear, like being clear, is that really when you do an incomplete statement, you're more doing fill in the blank and not multiple choice. So it's almost a different thought process. Here we have make alternatives approximately equal in length, and this deters the choose the longest answer student way to guess, which was told to me in my ACT junior class that I took. If you don't know, when in doubt, choose the longest answer is what they told me. Eliminate excessive verbiage or irrelevant information from the STEM. While if you look at the undesirable one, you're kind of building a story, and the actual question that you want your students to show you that they know the answer to is kind of buried underneath the story. So always being more direct seems to be more desirable and more effective. But that doesn't mean you don't want to establish context for the question that you're asking. So there's a delicate balance there. And finally, if you use negatively stated items, use them sparingly and make sure to underline or capitalize the negative word. Because you don't want to trick them with the question. You want to trick them with the answer. And if you're a trickster, that's how I would play it. So
just a little, strategy to aim for that higher level rather than your lower level Bloom's taxonomy is you can require more than just recall. You can develop questions that resemble miniature case studies or situations. You can provide data, quotes, series of graphs, any kind of information that might be appropriate for the activities of your discipline. Then you base the questions on that material. So they have a series of questions and you get to draw them through a complete thought, not just kind of a one-shot deal. And so now we move on to true and false. True and false is the most the most basic format. True and false questions are those which a statement is presented and the student indicates, whether it's true or false. The benefits for this is, you can really test them and cover quite a lot of content in a fairly short amount of time. From the teacher's perspective, true-false questions can be written fairly quickly and they're pretty easy to score as long as you make sure that they have some way to denote T and F and not just the tricky way where you can make it look like one letter. The educational objectives that specify students identifying or selecting or recognizing material are really appropriate and match true-false strategies. If you're forcing them to choose here, not just have an array of choice, and so it's really more appropriate for your identify, select, and recognize objectives. And so now it's time for the quiz. All right. You have 4 questions here. Ready? And let's do this in about 2 minutes, please. All right, can you see the results? Oh, hold on. Can you see the results?
Yep.
Yep.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so let's go over these, and I wanted to tell you all, I'm not trying to be the sage on the stage here, and you all have been teaching in this environment longer than I have, so feel free to chime in if you disagree with the answers, and let's negotiate meaning. That is perfectly fine with me. So number one, two ideas can be included in a true-false statement if the purpose is to show cause and effect, and the answer is yes. Way to go, team. Good job, everybody. I think that's the first one we all got right. So underlining or circling answers is preferable to having the student write them. Now, before I tell you the right answer, the reason why I had that disclaimer about negotiating was because of the results of this question. 57% of you said yes, 43% of you said no, and that's pretty close to me. The answer to them is yes. So let's talk about this, because I can see both sides. Why do you prefer underlining over circling, or vice versa?
You can't read what they wrote.
Over circling, or are you saying underline or circling versus like writing T or F?
Well, T or F isn't even an option in this one. Which one is better?
Well, it says, yeah, I misunderstood the way you phrased it, because it sounded like two of the same for me.
Okay. Oh, I guess you're right. Maybe I misinterpreted it. Now that you say it that way, that's a good point. Well, let's move on to number 3, whether it's good or poor practice. Complex statements are used to measure higher order thinking. Now here we have 57-43. You think that's good practice. The answer to them is actually poor. And I'm not real sure if I agree with that. I think if your complex statement is poorly written, then it is a poor idea. However, I am sure there are those who can write acceptable complex statements
Yeah.
that could lead somebody to be able to think higher orderly. That's my opinion. Select good or poor. True false statements should be approximately the same length. That is a good practice. But why would we say poor? What would be the disadvantages of having them the same length?
But what's the answer?
Good.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. All right, let's roll on. So we have more quizzes. Well, whiteboard, do you all have anything that you would like to share? Any strategies for creating true-false questions? And I'll take that as a no. So let's see what the strategies say from our little white paper. Base true-false items upon statements that are absolutely true or false without qualifications or exceptions. I would, if you read that without looking at the example, you would think that would be a given, because that's just going to be students knocking at your door, contesting your test. But if you look at the way they phrase the 2 true-false questions, then that kind of puts it into context. So you want to make sure that you provide the students with all the information necessary in a succinct manner.
Well, can I ask a question, Ellen?
Yeah, please.
So I'm looking at that thing, that first one there, statements that are absolutely true or false. Is that the same thing as saying that if you see anything false in that statement, it makes it false?
To me, that has always been the assumption.
That's the rule for me.
Yeah, same, and it is in Euclidean geometry as well. So that I would say that yes, that is a given. But
Okay.
I think what their point here is how you phrase your completely true or your almost true statement to make sure that they're, if you want the answer to be true, make sure you get everything out there to make it that way.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Don't leave anything under assumption, because that's where they could turn on you. Avoid using negatively stated items. I do think and because I was a geometry teacher for 20 years, there are places where you would use, and we use true and false in that particular content area a lot, where you do use negatively stated items. But I think that is specific to that subject matter.
Can I say something else here?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, listen, I agree with that assumption thing. You got to remember what class you're teaching at what level, because, you know, in general biology, I have been accused of making some assumptions that you know, that I made, but then when I was challenged on it, I agreed with the student.
Right.
That I was thinking too much, you know, you're just not there yet.
Right.
And so they had a legitimate case, and I'm like, you know, good for you.
That's awesome. You just gave me instructional chill bumps. That's fantastic. So there you go. That's my soliloquy on using negatively stated items, that I do think it's not a very good practice, but there are certain content areas where it may work better than not using it.
Hey, Ellen?
Yeah.
A question, like, and I'm thinking of something I used, and it was like, not a negatively stated thing, but it was like you had, well, no, that's not a true false. I was thinking about the multiple choice, but like, you know, saying like which of these things, you know, one of the things is not included sort of thing.
Right. And I think when you give them more choice, the word not lends itself to a different type of thinking.
As opposed to the true false. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas if you're thinking not, like that word to a common man would immediately mean false.
Gotcha, yeah.
You know, especially, I mean, how well do they read our test questions? That's the other thing. We got to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
All right, the next one says, include enough background information and qualifications so the ability to respond correctly doesn't depend on some special uncommon knowledge. So as you can see from the example, you're basically establishing context under which they need to make their decision, whether it's true or false. There are, lack of a better word, a crap ton of principles that are second in education. So, you know, according to John Dewey, focuses the student's brain power in the direction it needs to go in. All right, and the last one, express the item statement as simply and as clearly as possible. So again, this is kind of like the story engulfs the question, and they get all caught up in the story, and they fail to see the content that is being tested. And I'd like to add a little addendum to that. One of the things in my own research was studying worked examples. And in that worked examples, if you provided, and it was mathematics, if you provided too much description about the picture rather than just the picture, what ends up happening is the student's cognitive load becomes overloaded because they have so much to concentrate on. So succinct items for true false are definitely best practice. All right, variations of true false. This is really cool because we've all kind of been in our brain, at least I did up until I got to the point in this article, thinking TF. But there's other variations. You have true false correction. And that's where, you know, if it says false, they need to tell you why. That's always a good close in the circle kind of strategy with regards to instruction. The yes-no variation. You circle yes if that is one of the reasons. You circle no if that isn't a reason. Or, you know, that's still a true-false setup, just a little bit different format. And finally, the A-B variation, the choice. Select A, you know, select column A if it's the select type of test item. Select B if it's the student supplies the answer. So there are variations to this one gizmo. And then last but not least, and it's only 7:29, we have multiple choice. No, matching. So matching questions provide a most efficient way to test knowledge in courses where events and dates and names and places are important. Matching questions are also appropriate for the sciences, in which numerous experiments, experimenters, results, special terms, all these things have to be remembered. And now we are going to take a little test your knowledge on matching. But it's not matching. Those are too hard. Those are too hard to type in the little form they give me. All right.
Oh, it's not as good.
All right, y'all got about 2 minutes.
Oh, God.
All right, everybody done? Okie dokie, here we go. All right, let's talk about these. So your objective here was to decide whether it would be appropriate for matching or not. The student will be able to recognize the cities in near which the major battles of American Revolution took place. The answer is yes. You can construct a list. I'm sure there was enough battles. I really didn't have a good experience in history. That's why I became a math major. The student will be able to differentiate between words that are spelled correctly and those that are spelled incorrectly. And that is not a really good strategy for using multiple choice. Does anybody have anything they want to comment on why they chose what they did? Okay, number 3. The student will be able to identify the elements with their symbols from the periodic table. The answer here is yes. And look, we're 2 for 2 here, or 2 for, we won't do the rest of that ratio. The student will be able to identify the English words for various fruits that are represented, and the answer to that one is yes. Any comments or questions?
No, I was afraid I'd messed the whole thing up because I wasn't looking at the pure direction that you had behind it.
Yeah,
It still turned out
yeah.
okay.
I failed that. I did let you know it wasn't multiple or wasn't
Yeah,
matching.
I wasn't paying attention.
I guess I'm making my students pay attention. I'm catching you if you're not, right?
Yeah, and I misread question 2.
That's fine. We're good.
That's, those are the things though that trip the students up.
Right.
It sounds ridiculous, but one of my students recently told me she flunked a whole section on the praxis because she misread the directions.
Oh gosh. Oh my. Okay. Well,
Youch.
that informs me on the instructional design level with your praxis course. We may need to address that.
Well, it happens. It happens.
That's true. All right. So let's roll on. I actually have a few more polls for this particular one. But I do want to get a bit. Does anybody have any strategies about matching? Do you all use matching on your exams?
Yeah. I'll ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, I use a fair amount of matching. If I have like 5 questions and they're on the left, and then I want to match them at A, B, C, D, students think that you only can use A once. And so I have to tell them those answers could be used multiple times.
Wow, that's a good matching exam. Nice. That is excellent. And interestingly enough, I think that's one of my, that's one of the things the literature says. You don't have to have the exact number. Like it doesn't have to, match is a misnomer when it comes
No,
to
because they think if
creating
they get down to 5, then by default, they think they get the right answer.
Exactly, exactly. All right, let's see what these people have to say. Include directions which clearly state the basis for matching the stimuli with the responses. So rather than just giving them the instructions, match the following. You give them directions on exactly what they are matching. Don't assume that they know what to do. That's just good. That is just good practice in general.
Well, there it is. Each country in column 2 may be used more than once.
Right, right. All right, we got another one. You ready?
Yep.
All right, let me get my. All right, number 4. These are not the right instructions. Wait, no, they are the instructions. So I'm going to actually explain to you the instructions, this one. Here you're going to decide, when you think about the structure of matching, you have column A, column B, and we're talking right and left, no, left and right here. So during this quiz activity, if it should go in column A, the first column, the left column, then you select A as the best choice. If it goes in the right column, column B, you select that one. So they're going to give you kind of like where does this go when you're making a matching test. All right, let's end this. Everybody done? All right. So here we go. Which column should this go? When presenting words and their definitions, which column should contain the definitions which are longer than the words? And the answer is A. And we all got that one different. So let's talk about the interpretation of this question. Does anybody have any comments about that?
What, on one?
Yeah.
No. I mean, that's just what I do by default. That's why I answered
Yeah.
what I do.
Yeah, it just seemed obvious.
Yeah, but I can see that. I guess I see the logic. So they're saying, you know, listing the definition out
First.
in column A, yeah, and then saying, well, you know, here's what you're choosing from. I can see that.
I mean, I could see it, but I don't agree with their answer at all because I think 99.9, or actually 100% of us here put the word
That's what
first
I
and
normally
then the
do.
definition. Yeah. I'm going to research that one further and figure out why they said that. Items arranged in chronological order would be found in which column? Again, they said B and we all said A. So you would have the dates listed on the right or on the left, right? Sorry. Let me rephrase that whole thing. And if you're moving something around, could you please mute yourself if you don't mind? Thank you. Items, let's see. So
It sounded like somebody was doing dishes.
I know, which is cool. I mean, let's multitask. Items are arranged in chronological order would be found in, so I guess what side would you have the dates on versus what side would you have what the dates correspond to on? Let me ask that question. Answers?
It doesn't really matter if you have items on one side that are to be matched on items on the other side. You can really do it either way, whichever you think will work out best.
I wonder why this is even a question, but go ahead.
and I can see doing it either way, but you know, sometimes students get bored with the same old format. So I might change it around just to alleviate the boredom.
I think that's and it keeps them on their toes so that they're not always relying on kind of rote memory of direction of which way to think while they visually look on the screen. Then you're really drilling down by switching it up like that to assessing the knowledge, not necessarily the patterns of which you test. I think that's a fantastic point. Excellent, excellent. So premise is the term applied to the items in which column? A.
I had no idea on that.
Well, I think it's like, what do you, and maybe I should have put this question first, because if you have the premise, then you match the conclusion from that. And then, you know, if you're testing chronological order, you know, how do you want them to think about the dates? Do you want them to know the event that matches with the date, or do you want them to know what the date is and which event corresponds? So, I mean, I guess you could really get down and dirty on what direction you want your students to think.
Sure.
Items are designated by numbers in which column? A. And it's 50-50, but that is the same type of question as 1 and 2. All right, let's figure out what's next. Okay. Now, we're going to take a little poll here. You need to read the question, the matching question on the screen. And then when the poll pops up, it's a multiple choice. Again, no matching for you. You will need to select why this matching question is not effective. And there's just one. I probably need to point out that you may select more than one. And the indicator of that was that the S was in parentheses. All right, let's see what we got. So you had to describe the best way to revise this matching question. The answers provided to us are A, B, and D. A, B as in boy, D as in dog. Or answer 1, 2, and 4. So tell me what you think.
I can't see anything.
Oh wait, because I'm not sharing the results. Thank you.
There we go.
There we are. All right, let me rephrase that. So A, B, and D, or 1, 2, and 4 were the answers that were provided to us. Let's talk.
Quite frankly, I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Well, let's look at it. Edit all the stimuli on the left to be complete statements. Now, I can comment on that from the instructional design perspective. And from our perspective, we also look at the visual aspect of presenting information. So you have blanks in front of the one, you have blanks in the middle of the question or the statement. And that can be perceived as kind of an overload factor in my world.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I look at that as variety.
No, like your brain, if you think about what the student is thinking about when they look at that question, one of their questions may be, which blank am I looking at? Which dashed line am I supposed to be focusing on here?
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. So
I looked at that and it's like, where do I put my answer?
Exactly. Exactly. So, that from the design perspective of laying out what your paper visually looks like, one of the best practices is don't distract from what you really want to get done visually.
But you know what they'll do? They'll on each of those, they'll put the answers over to the left and they'll fill it in.
Yep, they will. You are
The quagmire right. is when they put different letters.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
All right, let's look at number 2. Remove all the blanks formed from the stimuli on the left. Well, I mean, that basically leads into the first one, and my same recommendation with regards to I don't want to say visual appeal, but seriously what your students are looking at and taking in through their eyeballs also has to be processed in addition to what you're telling them or showing them or their reading. So those are all types of way people receive information, and you want to make sure you don't get a clogged interstate. Let's just put it that way. Change the order of the responses on the right. Now this one wasn't a suggested answer, but we did have a couple of people say that that would be something they would improve on. And why is that?
But just so it's the is that what they're talking about, the organization of?
Gives them
Yeah.
organization, yeah.
Change the order.
Yeah, like
on the-
middle to exterior kind of thing. I mean,
I would have put them in alphabetical order, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, but see, Ellen, there is something to be said about disjunct brain patterns.
That's true. And you would know that.
I do. I do.
All right, and finally, edit the stimuli to be grammatically unbiased, singular, plural. And I mean, I again, that has to go to that your students receiving kind of, here it would be visual information because they're reading it. And, they may get hooked up on the fact that you have multiple protons and you only have one electron. And now all of a sudden they're thinking about numbers instead of whatever those particles are.
Well, what they're doing there is matching up subject to verb, singular to singular.
That's true. That's
And
true.
boom.
That, exactly. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing those. And guys, we're done. Next time we'll do short answer essay, and then we're going to close with some exam creation strategies. Now, tomorrow you're going to be receiving a post-workshop evaluation. And, give me feedback. Let's make this so that it's worth your time. And I will be happy to adjust the next presentation so that we get what we need out of this. But I really do appreciate visiting with you all on our Tuesday nights, and you all have a good evening. Anybody have any questions or anything?
It's fun, Ellen. It's fun.
Excellent, excellent. I mean, I wish I could give you virtual prizes, but that's just not the case. But I do appreciate you all, and don't forget to fill out that evaluation. All right?
Yep. See ya.
All right, peace.
Good night,
Hey,
everyone.
I figured out how to join. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
yeah. All right. Woohoo.
Woo!
All right, y'all
Bye,
take
guys.
it easy.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.